Still, the British hoped, even if the Americans didn't support what they were doing, there might be acquiescence, that the Americans would turn a blind eye, perhaps opposing in public, but in practice doing nothing to stop the operation. And part of the reason for this was that Eisenhower didn't say what he would do if the British did use force, partly because he believed they wouldn't do it without American support, and he did not want to appear to threaten an ally. And the British were encouraged in their view that they might win American support for a threat of force by the American Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles. And that was paradoxical, since while British leaders liked Eisenhower, indeed almost everyone, in the phrase of the 1950s, almost everyone liked Ike, as they put it, British leaders didn't like Dulles very much, and they were particularly irked by his rather legalistic and self-righteous approach to foreign policy. Eden prided himself on his flair and intuition in foreign policy, and he didn't like listening to sermons and moralizing from the American Secretary of State. And Harold Macmillan rather unkindly said of Dulles that his speech was slow, but it easily kept pace with his thought. Now, Eisenhower liked Dulles, but few others did, and Eden certainly didn't, and called him in his memoirs a preacher in the world of politics. It's also fair to say that Dulles and many other Americans didn't like Eden, with his languid aristocratic manner and his habit of calling colleagues my dear, which rather grated on American opinion. Now, Dulles's long-winded speeches left many wondering what precisely he meant. But that was in part deliberate, because Dulles was deliberately using delaying tactics. He thought the danger of war would disappear once negotiations started, and that he should keep the pot boiling so that tempers cooled down a bit. But to get the British and French fully committed to negotiations, he had to give the impression that if these failed, the Americans might consider supporting force. In other words, he wanted to string the British and French along. But despite all this, and despite the fact that he was disliked by British leaders, Dulles, oddly enough, was more sympathetic to the British position than Eisenhower was. So he couldn't disguise that sympathy in Britain.